What is an experience you had with God that if you told anyone, most people wouldn't believe it? Well, in today's video, I'll be sharing testimonies from different people while I take you with me to Kmart at Watergardens. Kmart has a variety of items, but today we'll focus more on the interior decor pieces that I found. Sit back, relax, and enjoy while I share real-life testimonies. Hello everyone, welcome to Ebitimi TV. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always coming back to view my videos. Please leave me a comment and tell me where you're watching me from. I'm curious, I'd like to know. Let's get into our testimonies. I got these testimonies from Diary of a Niger Girls page on Instagram. In 2020, something happened on the Abakaliki-Enugu highway that I will never forget. We accidentally hit a woman with our Hilux. She had tried to cross the road without looking, and although our driver did everything he could to dodge her, it was too late. She passed out instantly. Out of fear, the driver panicked and suggested that we run, but I refused. I told him to reverse so we could take her to the hospital. When we stepped out, a crowd quickly gathered, but no one wanted to help. I had to shout at them before a few agreed to assist us in lifting the woman into the bucket of our vehicle. She was bleeding heavily from the forehead. Then, as if on cue, a highway patrol team appeared. They immediately handcuffed the driver. I genuinely felt like they were wasting precious time. The woman was still bleeding, but instead of heading straight to the hospital, they drove us to the nearest police station to hand over the case. While all this was happening, I sat in the back of the Hilux with the woman. Her breathing grew faint. Out of desperation, I started pumping her chest, even though I had no idea what I was doing. I've never been in that kind of situation before, but I just kept pumping. Then suddenly, she screamed. It felt like she had come back to life, but she was still clearly in pain. Eventually, the officers handed the driver over to the station, and one of them drove the Hilux to the hospital with me still in the back next to her. Somewhere on the flyover at Presco Junction in Abakaliki, she stopped breathing again. That moment nearly broke me. I was overwhelmed with fear, not just because of what was happening, but because I knew what people might say. They have used her to bury their late king. The king was my grandfather, His Royal Highness Eze Chibueze Agbo Ogaba Idutu of Izia. I hope I haven't butchered these names, who had recently passed away. The timing couldn't have been worse. I didn't know what else to do, so I started praying. I was desperate. I said things I shouldn't have said. I remember crying out, God, if this woman dies, it means you don't exist. That year had already been filled with grief, betrayal, and disappointment. I was broken. But even in that moment of doubt, God showed up as He always does. Just after I uttered those words, the woman sneezed. She came back to life. When we got to Fetha 2, the Federal Teaching Hospital, we rushed her to the emergency section. Doctors and nurses took over immediately. I called my dad, still breathing heavily. He could hear my heartbeat through the phone. To cut the long story short, she survived. We were eventually able to contact her family. When they arrived, they shared how their family had been under attacks just a few days before. Her brother had passed and was deposited at the mortuary. She had gone there that day to see his body. It was on her way back that she alighted from a tricycle, collected her change, and crossed the road without looking. I learned that day that miracles still happen. That fear is real, but doing the right thing in the middle of fear is even more powerful. Most of all, I learned that even when you speak from a place of anger, doubt, or despair, God still listens. Thank God for always coming through for His people. Hallelujah! This next testimony happened in 2010 to 2011 in Ivory Coast, where there was a war. So here's the story, the testimony. I was leading worship at my church during the war, and some rebels came into the church and shot my leg, and the bullet bounced back and hit the piano leg. The whole choir saw it too, so I'm not crazy. The rebels saw that and they ran away. I touched the bullet, it was hot. I choose where I share this testimony because I'm aware it will be difficult for people to believe it. I wouldn't. LOL. Thank God the choir behind me saw it. God is mind-blowing. Someone else shared, in 2012, I was in Poly, that's Polytechnic, and went on holidays living with my maternal elder sister, whose husband passed on. Some months later, she told me she would want to move out of the house because of the memories, but wouldn't want me to move with her. I had nowhere to go, as my mother threw me out of her house as a result of her dispute with my father. When I called my father, he told me to meet my mother, so I was hopeless and homeless. When I finished my national diploma, I was sad because I knew I had nowhere to go from there. I went back to my sister's compound with the hope of still meeting her there, but she had moved out. I called her, but no response. While I sat down inside the open, empty house crying, my sister's landlord, who was living next door in the compound, walked in and asked me what had happened, and I told her. She immediately asked me to move in with her. My tears ceased from that moment until this day. She housed me, clothed me, fed me, encouraged me to go to the university, and she and her husband sponsored me throughout my University of Benin. After BSc, I told her I would want to do my master's as I had saved some money from my university allowance they were given to me. She encouraged me and also sponsored my master's. While I was about graduating from my master's degree and thinking of how to get a job, they said to me, "Get ready, you are going to England." It was like a dream. I learned from them. God gave me a mother and father who genuinely loved me when my biological parents threw me out. Now they say forgive and forget. If you see this comment, please help me thank. She wrote the name of her foster parents and her whole family. I love you, Mama. Thank you for taking me out of the slum. I will never be tired of thanking you. Wow. You know, when I see this, when I read testimonies like this or hear stories like this, I just say a prayer that may it be the reason why someone else is giving a testimony and thanking God just because they encountered us in life. Here's another testimony. This time it's about infertility. I was TTC, that's trying to conceive. That month I prayed. I told God that I wasn't going to buy sanitary pads that month in faith. The day my period was due, I went to the bathroom at work and saw blood stains on my panties. I got angry at God and really had a bad rant at Him, saying all sorts. I then immediately bought sanitary pads as where I worked was situated within a supermarket. Unknown to me, God had answered my prayers. The blood stains were implantation spotting. I had no idea. My child is 14 years and a gift in all. Wow. My testimony. God's faithfulness in the midst of crisis. It was July 2021 when my dad contracted COVID-19. As an air traffic controller, he was constantly traveling, and despite all the precautionary measures he had consistently taken since the pandemic began in 2020, the virus still found its way to him. It was a shocking and devastating moment for our family, especially because we had just begun to feel like life was returning to normal after months of lockdown. But then the devil struck. Watching my dad deteriorate before our eyes was heartbreaking. After he tested positive, he was isolated at home, and even that short period was deeply painful for me. Eventually, he had to be moved to a COVID center as his condition worsened. I saw my strong, vibrant father in a near vegetative state. My mom stayed by his side every single day, sleeping over at the center, bathing him, feeding him, and doing everything humanly possible to keep him comfortable. His condition deteriorated rapidly. COVID had affected his heart, kidneys, and blood. According to the doctors, he was urinating blood, had a persistent dry cough, and showed other frightening symptoms I can't even fully recall. Every day felt like a battle for his life. Despite my fear and emotional turmoil, I still had to show up for work. There were days I couldn't hold it together. I would find myself crying uncontrollably at my desk. I was terrified, not just for him, but also for my mom and sister, who were in close contact with him every day. We were all on edge, but my uncle stepped in to help, sending food and very expensive medicines through dispatchers. Anything he thought might help. One morning on my way to work, I was listening to NSPPD. I couldn't pray out loud because I was in a public vehicle, but my heart was overwhelmed. I cried silently, begging God to heal my father. Then Pastor Jerry spoke words that pierced my soul. He said something along the lines of, "There is a man losing strength. When you walk, you feel like you've run a marathon." Those weren't his exact words, but they were the perfect description of what my dad had told us. Just days before, I knew in that moment that God had spoken our word. I held on to it like a lifeline. A few days later, we began hearing that my dad was improving. Then the miraculous happened. He was discharged. That was when I truly understood who God is. A healer, a protector, a father who listens. His ways are not our ways. In just about a month, we went from despair to joy, from fear to gratitude. Throughout his time in the hospital, my mom laid on the floor beside his bed, or sometimes outside. She looked so pale and worn out. With the little money I had from my contract job at the time, I bought a foam mattress so she could at least rest better. People were dying weekly in that ward, yet God spared my dad. And in the end, no one else in our family got infected. That alone was another miracle. I am forever grateful. God showed up and He showed out. He preserved my father's life and protected the rest of us. This is my testimony. God is indeed faithful and His name be praised. Hallelujah. If you found these testimonies really uplifting, please leave me a comment and let's just celebrate our God together. And I know a few of us, I think at every point in time someone is believing for something. I just hope that these testimonies would be a signal to you, letting you know that God is in the neighborhood and your testimony will be next. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do well to hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment. I'm actually curious to know where you're watching me from. Like I mentioned earlier, leave me a comment, say something. I promise I'll reply. So I'll see you in my next video. Take care and remain blessed. Bye.